A madman that robbed the graves of 29 young girls turned his victims into dolls, dressed them in stockings, and applied lipstick and makeup to their faces, and on top of all of that, lived with the mummified corpses. Anatoly Moskvin, born in 1966 in Russia, 53 years old, sadly highly educated. Get this. His parents, who lived in the same apartment, claimed to know nothing about all of this. At the age of 12, he was approached by 3 older men when he was walking back from school, who then dragged him to the funeral of an 11-year-old Natasha, who died by suspicious accidental electrocution. They brought him over to her casket and demanded him to kiss her. This is terrifying, to say the least, especially as a young kid not knowing what is going on here and being forced to do something that is disgusting. When he refused to kiss her, they forced his head down and wouldn't let his head back up until he kissed her on the forehead 3 times. I kissed her once, then again, then again. The girl's grieving mother then put a wedding ring on Anatoly's finger and a wedding ring on her dead daughter's finger. At this point, the girl's mother handed Anatoly an apple. What? Anyway, to Anatoly, he thought he did a good job and he's being rewarded. He walked away thinking that he is married now to this dead girl. Anatoly then started having dreams about Natasha. She would visit him and tell him all these stories, and eventually she would say, "You need to go to the graveyard where I am going to teach you black magic. I am not going to leave you alone until you learn black magic." But he was a smart kid. He knew not to go to the graveyard and follow a ghost there and learn black magic. The dreams got worse and worse, and every single night, Natasha would get angrier and angrier. Eventually, Anatoly told his parents that he was having nightmares, but he couldn't tell them anything that had happened to him. But they sent him to a psychologist who said, "Oh, it's just because he is hitting puberty." But the dreams still didn't go away, even though the doctor prescribed him sleep medication. And eventually, Natasha told him, "You can put me on someone else, you can curse someone else with me, but you have to get their tooth first." Somehow, Anatoly managed to get a kid's tooth at school. And after he performed the ritual Natasha told him to perform, he never saw her again. Afterwards, he led a fairly normal life, but he had a deep fascination with the dark, Satanism, devil worship, and cemeteries. He had been well known in academic circles for his knowledge of Celtic history, a culture whose mythology often blurs the lines between life and death. Also, with a special focus on burial rites, and as well as his language skills, he mastered 13 languages. After studying cultural literature and linguistics in college, he became a college professor and he was held in high regard. There is no denying that Anatoly is a smart person. He started practicing Satanism and he told his fellow practitioners what happened with Natasha, and immediately they were like, "You have superpowers. You can talk to the dead." And he instantly regretted sending her away because he thought he could have learned so much from this little girl. He even had a normal, healthy relationship that only didn't last because they couldn't have children together. Shortly after, Anatoly landed his dream job, and Arthur hired him to wander around cemeteries all throughout Russia and record data from them. Moskvin roamed from cemetery to cemetery. He added, "I don't think anyone in the city knows them better than I do." From 2005 to 2007, Moskvin claimed to have visited 752 cemeteries. He took detailed notes on each one and delved into the histories of those buried there. He claimed he had walked up to 20 miles per day, sometimes sleeping on hay bales and drinking rainwater from puddles. Moskvin posted a documentary series of his travels and discoveries entitled "Great Walks Around Cemeteries" and "What the Dead Said." These continue to be published in a weekly newspaper. He even said he spent one night sleeping in a coffin ahead of a deceased person's funeral. In 2009, locals began to discover the graves of their loved ones desecrated, sometimes completely dug up. Eventually, he was caught when investigators were led to a cemetery where someone was painting over the pictures of dead Muslims. This was where Moskvin was finally caught, and 8 police officers went to his apartment after they apprehended him to gather evidence. What they found there shocked them all and shocked the whole world. He shared an apartment with his parents. Inside, the authorities found life-sized, doll-like figures throughout the apartment. The figures resembled antique dolls. They wore clothing, and some wore boots, others had makeup on. Except these were not dolls. They were the mummified corpses of human girls. Moskvin embedded music boxes inside the chests of many of the dolls so they could produce sounds when Moskvin touched them. One mummy had a piece of her own gravestone with her name scrawled on it inside her body. Another one contained a hospital tag with the date and the cause of the girl's death. A dried human heart was found inside the third body. When asked about the reasons for his actions, he simply said that he dug up graves of girls because he was lonely and his biggest dream was to have children. Moskvin added he had done what he did because he was waiting for science to find a way to bring the dead back to life. In the meantime, he used a simple solution of salt and baking soda to preserve the girls. Shoes in Moskvin's apartment matched footprints found near desecrated graves, and police knew without a doubt that they had their grave robber. Moskvin was charged with a dozen crimes, all of which dealt with the desecration of graves. In court, Moskvin confessed to 44 counts of abusing graves and dead bodies. He said to the victims' parents, "You abandoned your girls. I brought them home and weaned them." Moskvin was diagnosed with schizophrenia and sentenced to time in a psychiatric ward following his sentencing. As of September 2018, he was faced with the opportunity to continue psychiatric treatment in his home. After his prosecution, several of Moskvin's colleagues quit their collaboration with him, and his parents isolated themselves. Moskvin allegedly told authorities to not bother reburying the girls too deeply, as he will simply unbury them when he is released.